consider a person living in bucket land. It's nicely bucket-shaped, and it has whatever color you wish it to have, but it is a bucket. Now, inside of bucket land, there's a little prison, and this person's caught inside the prison. And looking out the side of the prison, he sees all the wonderful things that happen in bucket land. You know, there's little lakes, and there's people having picnics, and it looks fun out there. He doesn't like it in prison. So he goes through what I would call traditional self-improvement methods, self-hypnosis, for example, some forms of meditation, and meditation will handle slightly differently when we get to this segment on that. And, you know, there's a million different methods, right? And he learns how to break out of his prison, and for a while he's overjoyed. He's running around the prairies, dancing away, and having a wonderful time. Until one day, he hits something, some invisible barrier they can't quite understand. He's come to the edge of bucket land, where the bucket is, right? So what does he do? He turns to one side and walks around, and so for a while it's fine, because he's constantly exploring new things, and life is still a joy. But eventually, bucket land being finite, he runs out of things to explore. He knows everything. Everything's usual. Everything's new. So really, bucket land becomes the new prison for him. He gets bored, frustrated, angry maybe, depressed. I know no one here has ever felt these things, right? He feels like his life's going nowhere, like he's walking around in circles, because he is. Because he's explored up to the limits of whatever map, shall we say, his mind's allowed him to have. And this is where we get stuck in a very frustrating place, because any goal that you can conceive within bucket land is by definition limited to bucket land, because your conscious mind can only work with what's around it. The only time people leave bucket land in normal life is when something so dramatic happens in their life, turns it upside down, which forces them, it basically spills bucket land over, it forces them out. And for a while, life is deeply unpleasant until they learn that they're now in bathtub land. Much bigger, but still has constraints. Do you understand the metaphor so far? What we'll be doing here is we'll be talking directly to that part of you that's responsible for creating bucket land as a safe environment, and then bathtub land around that, and swimming pool land around that, and you can carry on with larger vessels, if you like, around that ad infinitum. So whenever one type of reality, one way of being has no longer serves you, you've outgrown it, that you can engage in a process that will relatively painlessly allow you to go to the next stage in your personal transformation and so on, so that you can then go back to enjoying life, its riches and so on, but in a way that you cannot conceive of right now. Because if you could conceive of it right now, then it wouldn't be out there, it'd still be in here. Do you understand the dilemma that we face in the self-improvement industry? Now, if you're working with a therapist, that's a little easier to do, because your therapist is not in your bucket land. If he's in your bucket land, he can't help you. Right? If they have the same issues as you, it's going to be very difficult for them to help you, because they don't have the insight to be what it's like to be outside of that. So what a good therapist will say is, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that, but tell me if you find someone who can, because I'll join you. Or, if they stand outside of your bucket enough, they can go, oh, you're just stuck in bucket land, and let me help you out of that. That's what a good therapist will do, whether it's hypnotherapy or something else. Do you understand the analogy here? But the dilemma is, when you're doing it on yourself, you don't have that external perspective. Or rather, you don't have access to it consciously. But given that your unconscious mind created that bucket for your security, by the way, because it makes you feel safe, constrains it for safety, well, you can have a chat to the same one that built bucket land, so he can show you how to carve a hole in it, and slowly and safely, that's the important part, explore what happens outside of it. Do you understand that? So we have two separate but importantly intertwined tasks to perform over the next 5 days. One task is to ground you, to keep you in reality, to keep you, shall we say, sane, right? And that builds one type of mental muscle. And over time, over a long period of time, those kind of practices have a lot of research to show can do wonderful, can make wonderful transformations in your life, but they require a lot of time and a lot of practice. Now, to speed things up, we're going to do other exercises, other practices that will help you fly. Now, if you, and hence the medical disclaimer here, if you're already borderline, like a psychotic can't tell the difference between one reality and another reality, right? That's part of what psychosis is about. If you have problems with that, flying is not where you need to go first. It's grounding, right? If you fly too high, then the old Icarus legend comes in. You may get a little bit burned by the sun. You need to be able to learn to fly and ground, fly and ground. That way, you have the optimal, the fastest, safest route to discovering what bathtub land is all about. Does that make sense to everyone?